Today's topic is very interesting. If you work with children with autism or if you have a child with autism, we are going to talk about the first words. And this is a very important topic because the first word for many children with autism, or one of their first words, is not mama. Typically, for neurotypical peers, cross linguistically, mama is the first word that develops, or one of the first words that are daddy, dada, for other children. So, why is it the case that with children with autism, mama is not one of their first words? Well, I'm going to give you a hint. It's not at all related to a lack of interest or love for their mother. The good news is that it is related to something that is speech, motor skill related, motor coordination related, and proprioception. That's something we can do something about, but it's not related to a lack of interest or love for their mother. We're going to see the same thing if we look at animal sounds. A lot of children with autism love animals, like farm animal sounds, but that's not one of their first words. If you look at the neurotypical peers, animal sounds is among of the first words. It's quite common. So it's not about a lack of interest, but it really is about what is going on physiologically in terms of speech and motor development. So I'm going to dive into these 4 reasons, and it's going to help you understanding these 4 reasons because then you're going to know how to DSD, do something different to help these children develop these words. Before I begin, I'm just going to tell you this is going to be a shorter episode. And the reason it's going to be a shorter episode is I'm doing this week alone 2 big presentations. I have a presentation for ASHA. You can see that if you're enrolled virtually for the Seattle ASHA that is going to be occurring in December. And that ASHA presentation is on how to teach individuals to use high-tech AAC devices. Now, if I do say so myself, it's a great technical presentation. If you're going to ASHA, make sure to check out Kelly Vess's presentation on AAC. It's really quite good. I think you're going to love it. The second presentation I'm doing this week is I'm doing a full day presentation in Brentwood, California. I'm excited about that. That one is going to be in person. So I'm off to California tomorrow morning. I'm excited to be there. And in Brentwood, California, I am going to be doing a 2-part presentation. In the beginning, it's going to be on children with autism, AAC, and speech development. And in the afternoon, we get to talk about language and literacy development. So it's going to be a really fun all-day presentation. I'm so excited for it. We're going to do a lot of hands-on practice, and you can only do that in person. When you pair up and you really roll up your sleeves, you get your hands dirty, and you get into these techniques and using them with other individuals. I'm so excited because I'm actually going to bring hands-on materials down with me to California so that the participants can really get a feel for what would you do on Monday morning? What does the research look like? This is what it feels like. This is what you're doing. I can't wait for that. I'm so excited about that presentation. That said, this is going to be very short because my plane leaves early in the morning tomorrow. As far as autism is concerned, when it comes to speech, I'm going to talk about 4 different barriers to the children with autism saying mama. The first barrier is very important. It's auditory processing. So we know from the research that children with autism, over 90% is estimated, have auditory processing difficulties. A lot of them, they learn language more through their eyes than through hearing words. They learn them through reading the words. They learn it through seeing the pictures. They're through seeing words and through reading. Many of my students that I've worked with, they learn to talk through reading first. The door for them is not through their ears and learning how to talk, it's through reading words, which is why it's so important to always pair pictures or objects with print as much as possible. And that's gotten easier and easier thanks to the technological age. Nonetheless, mama is a very short nasal stop. I say it's a nasal stop because even though the airflow continues in the nasal cavity, it stops in the oral cavity. That makes the sound very short. So it's about 30 to 50 milliseconds long. I call it like the snap of the finger. So that's what the M sound is like for children with autism. Very short. So because the sound is so short, they're less likely to hear it. And even if you follow the innate idea of speech development, Noam Chomsky would say if you cannot hear it, if you can't perceive the sound, you're not able to say it. So the m is so short. It's one of the shortest consonants in the English language. And for that, it's difficult to hear. And because of that, it's difficult for the children with autism to say. So I've done a lot of speech research in this area, and I looked at these details. And stop consonants are very short in length. And when we're talking about stop consonants, we're talking about P, B, T, D, K, G, M, N, which are nasal stops. Okay, these are very short. Because they're so short, snap, 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 snap. It's easy for a child with auditory processing to not hear the sound. Now, these are the easiest sounds to produce across languages around the world. However, if you're a child with autism, you can't perceive it, as Chomsky would say, then it's difficult to say it. Realizing that we're going to do something different in therapy and not rely on, oh, because you heard the word, you're going to see it. We're going to use the gestures. When we say mama, we might do something like, mom, so that they can really see it multimodally. We're using our hands, we're slowing the speech, we're overemphasizing it. We're going to do that so that they're able to perceive it, so that it's not a snap of a finger. We're making it longer, we're making it bigger, we're making it multimodal by using our limbs along with it. We're going to do something different so that these children can perceive the M, because it's very important to be able to call your mother. To say mama is where you're going to open an interaction, which is one of the most important interactions this child is ever going to have. And then you have that circles of communication. This is really important stuff we're talking about here. This is probably the most important word for this child to learn. The second reason why mama is going to be very difficult for children with autism is motor delay. The recent research indicates, when they look at meta-analytic studies and systematic reviews, perhaps over 80% of children with autism have generalized motor delays. It means throughout the body, there's delay in development. And the way we develop is we start with the core, right? This is called the proximal, near to the heart, near to the core. And we go out from there to distal. So distal means all the way to the tippy tips. So distal, you can think of fingertips, right? We can also think of lips. It's all the way to the tip, tip, tip. What develops first is a core, and lastly are the lips. That's the most distal region from the core. Okay. What happens is that muscular development is not well developed for children that have a generalized motor delay. You're often going to see these children when they're at rest with their mouth ajar slightly. Maybe there's drool coming out because their mouth is ajar. Even if their mouth is not ajar, they don't have good motoric control because of this generalized motor delay that is happening throughout the body. That is why I'm such an advocate for children with autism. Receiving physical therapy evaluation is standard practice when you're looking at an autism evaluation. Receiving physical therapy intervention, they're very underserved, because if the core isn't developed, you're not going to be able to develop the speech, the eye contact, the gestures, the social conventions that we use to communicate. The core comes first. You can't fly if you're lying on the ground. You're not going to be able to fly. So they need to be able to get up, have a strong core, then the gross motor develops, and then the fine motor develops. When we're talking about the lips, the fingertips, that's distal, that comes lastly. That's another reason why M, which is something we do with our lips, is especially challenging for children with autism. The word mama, it's a motor delay. The third reason why is also related to motor differentiation, motor coordination. So we know that children with autism are more likely to have motor coordination difficulties when it comes to sounds. And you find that they have difficulties with sounds such as F and V, which you have a multiple step coordination, which first you retract that lower lip over the bottom teeth, and then yeah, bite down and blow. So there's two steps involved in that. They also tend to have problems with glides. Glides are the sound that's the w and the ya sound, such as want, you. And that's because once again, you're literally gliding the articulators as you say it. So if you say the W sound slowly, it'll be like wah as you retract the lips back. If you say the ya sound, such as in you slowly, you're going to have a smile first, and you're going to move the lips forward slowly. You. So what you have there is complex motor coordination. So motor coordination is another area of difficulty for many children with autism. And we see it in the body. They have difficulty turning, which is something that requires complex motor coordination. And what you see instead is kind of a shuffle turn, a real stiff movement. And so, as far as the motor coordination is concerned, mama requires differentiation, in which the lips are moving independently of the jaw. So you can think of the jaw as gross motor and the lips as fine motor. And you're kind of like, you're not moving the lips without the jaw. So what you see with many children with autism is they talk like a Sesame Street puppet, and they have that big like cookie ma, in which they're overcompensating for a lack of labial coordination, differentiation, in which you're moving the lips independently of the jaw. They use their jaw instead. So they compensate for that lack of differentiation in which they're able to move the lips without moving the jaw much by moving the jaw a lot. So you see them talk like this, ma, and they're opening them up, ma, and they're using the jaw in order to put those lips together. That is a motor coordination difficulty. Once again, you got to keep in mind, this has nothing to do with a lack of interest or a lack of love for their mothers. It has everything to do with motor, sensory. Okay, so when an auditory perception. So number 4 is the sensory issue. Proprioception. Now, that is knowing where you are in space. With the lips, you have this idea of like the lips are kind of moving on their own, they're differentiating, they're doing their own thing out there in the front of the mouth, farthest part from the core that develops lastly, and they don't know where their lips are in space. When I'm working with the children with autism, a lot of times this might seem very germy with all the COVID we have going on, but putting their hand over their lips lets them know my lips are together now. If they want to say ball, they put their hands in the balls, and they can feel those lips together because they lack proprioception and knowing where those lips are in space. Putting their hands up to them lets them know, okay, they're together now. Yeah, they're apart now. I can feel it, and I can feel that they're together. That is another difficulty that children with autism are much more likely to experience than their neurotypical peers. So, for those 4 reasons, mama is difficult for children with autism. And it's not only mama, we can also think of animal sounds are another area that are really difficult. And the reason for that is the animal sounds are basically stop consonants, once again, which are really short, such as if you're going to be a lamb, you're going to say ba ba. If you're going to be a cow, it's moo moo. So I could go on and on, quack quack for a duck, but you're saying these very short stop consonants. And also you have a lot of diphthongs, and diphthongs is where you're coordinating 2 vowels together. That requires motor coordination. So a lot of our children will centralize that. Instead, for a cow says moo, a cow says ma, you won't get that ooh, that nice diphthong. So that is what I want you to keep in mind when you're working with children with autism, is that they are going to be taking their own path to speech development, and it's going to be a very different path from their neurotypical peers. And we appreciate that they're taking a neurodivergent route, then we can do something different, and we can responsibly treat these children by looking at what are the underlying causes that's making mama difficult for you, and what can we do differently. So in terms of auditory perception, we can go ahead and make the M longer, bigger, use gestures, multimodal, multisensory. Number 2, when it comes to generalized motor disorder, we have to stop ignoring these children's bodies, and we need to start incorporating task-oriented movement therapy activities into therapy that treats the whole child and effectively improves not only their motor skill development, but also their motor coordination abilities. Thirdly, when we look at the proprioception, we're going to have to think about tactile gestures in which the child is touching their own mouth and touching their own face to know what is their mouth doing there out in front of their face. They can't see it. Their eyes are up here. They using touching cues and they're doing things such as touching their mouth to feel that their lips are together. That's going to help. I want you to take all of this information. Thank you so much for being with me at the drawing board. And I want to thank Rochelle, my wonderful assist member. She emailed me because she works with preschoolers, and one of her parents is a mother of a child with autism. And she was really concerned that her child was not saying mama and was saying these words that weren't mama. And why wasn't her child saying mama? It's really important as a professional that you're not answering them and saying, because your child's more interested in objects over people. That's not all the case. This is very much solidly research-based why mama is so difficult for these children with autism. What isn't research-based is to read children's minds. You do not have a crystal ball. You do not know what others are thinking or what their desires are. However, we do have science, and there's 4 very strong evidence-based reasons for children with autism not saying mama. Thank you, Rochelle, for this wonderful topic this week. It's such an important topic to discuss why children with mama are not saying autism. It's very much rooted in speech. It's very much rooted in auditory perception, and it's very much rooted in motor development and motor coordination.